Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This is going to be another one of these Avatar Explained videos. This is the second one. So a few days ago I did the one where I explained the Book 2 Spirits finale from Korra, and specifically basically how Cosmic Korra, Big Giant Blue Korra works, as well as what Jinora does in the Book 2 finale. People seem to like that video and the depth of the explanation, and so I'm going to do a few more of these videos. So the next one, as you can see here, is basically all about connecting the Book 2 Earth finale to the Book 3 Fire finale with Aang's Avatar State plot. So he is killed by Azula, seemingly while in the Avatar State. Why doesn't the Avatar cycle end at this point, like Roku said? And then, okay, he survives. Why is it that it takes Aang slamming into a pointy rock to unlock the Avatar State in the end? Isn't that a bit, convenient? What are the specifics behind how all of this works? We're spanning basically a full season here, but a full season where the topic is not really brought up all that much. So I think it's one of these ones that confuses people a little bit, and because it's not really treated as being like a main plot point, it just kind of happens. A lot of people don't really know what the explanation is. So let's get into this. I think a lot of the times with these sort of things, it's important to note, what questions are we asking? What do we actually want to know in terms of understanding this? So for me, the key questions to answer with this whole situation are these 5. 1. Does Aang ever unlock the Thought Chakra? The reason, obviously, that's a question is because when he left with Guru Pathik, who he was learning the different chakras from, he left before unlocking that 7th one. And then along the way, did he actually ever unlock that? Was it a dropped plot point or something like that he never opened it? That's an important thing to answer first. Then, if is Aang not killed in the Avatar State? Shouldn't the Avatar cycle be over? As I said, that's the Roku thing. Episode 1 of Book 2 made it clear to us that if you die in the Avatar State, the cycle ends. So how does that work, and why did it not apply here? And then the counterpoint to that question that goes along with it, if the cycle is fine, Aang still died, why is a new Avatar not born in the moment where Aang is dead? So, and then obviously we know that he does survive, so Aang is revived and is still the Avatar. So what actually is blocking the Avatar State for most of Book 3? Why does it take until the finale to do that? And then the final question, why does the rock in the finale suddenly activate the Avatar State? So they're the 5, I think, key questions to answer over the course of this video. And let's just jump straight into the first one. So the question of Aang unlocking his final chakra is often brought up because of Guru Pathik's warning to Aang as he leaves. He clearly doesn't finish the process of mastering the Avatar State, and his attachment issue is not brought up in Book 3, really. So did he ever unlock the last chakra? That's the question. So first of all, let's understand what the 7th chakra, the final chakra, is. So the 7th chakra is the Thought Chakra. That's the name of it. It deals with pure cosmic energy and is blocked by earthly attachments. The location of this chakra is also in the crown of the head. So that's just some facts. And then we get into some character stuff here before we get into the technical details. So Aang's character flaw is his attachment to the people that he cares about. Katara, Appa, Gyatso, the other airbenders, his people, and so on. When Pathik urges him to let go of his attachments, Aang interprets this as having to immediately and forever let go of the people he cares about. Really, what Aang is being asked to do is understand that if given the choice between the world or his attachments, that he can make the correct choice. He has to be able to let go and understand that attachments at the expense of everything else is not a healthy attitude. So this is just, I suppose, interpretation of the scene here with what the chakras are about, really, and specifically with this one, what he's being asked to do. Aang is not being asked to basically never care about anything, never actually have an attachment, never have a bond to anything, but know that other stuff can come ahead of them, that your attachments are not everything, they don't define everything, and you will not, and they're not so you're not so attached that you'll place them above everything else. That you can understand when, especially Aang as the Avatar, his priority has to be to the world and keeping balance. even over his attachments. And that's basically what the chakra is about. So I'll get into it here as well. So he leaves without opening the last chakra point, but in the battle in the catacombs in Ba Sing Se, he is suddenly presented with the very choice he was asked to consider. Does he rush to protect a surrounded Katara and potentially risk the complete failure of everything they've worked for, or understand that this is a situation where the world has to be put ahead of Katara and that he has to leave her in danger to have time to master the Avatar state? So visually we can see that here in the scene. So you can see here, Katara is fighting really, really well, but there gets to a point towards the end of the episode where she is surrounded by the Dai Li. Zuko and Azula kind of have control over everything that's happening. She's still, she's not injured as such. She's ready to fight, but she's completely outmatched at this point. Aang is a little bit separated from her. He kind of has his back to the wall. He's not surrounded, but it pretty much is just him and Katara against the whole room full of people. And you can see here, he initially is ready to fight. He's initially ready to go in and protect Katara because we know he loves her. But you see the doubt begin to creep into his face here. The question comes up of, in a way, should I rush in to protect Katara but sacrifice everything? If I'm captured, the whole plan is done. The world is done for. And so he reluctantly makes the decision here that he has to, at this point, let Katara go. He has to prioritize being the Avatar, and in this case, the only way to get out of this situation would be to use the Avatar state and its power to, stop this. And unfortunately, it probably means that Katara gets hurt in the process, but he has to do that to keep himself active. And as you can see, he creates the kind of crystal hut for himself, and is basically there. He unlocks the chakra at this moment. That's why the glow activates. It's why he's basically just about to master the Avatar state. So the explanation you have here, so we can see that he does unlock the thought chakra, but before the process is complete, he is hit by Azula's lightning. But the key point here is that we see Aang was willing to let Katara go. There is no fundamental issue that still needed to be dealt with here in terms of the philosophy of the chakra. The only confusion here is that Aang initially interprets this chakra as all or nothing. The chakras are not that black and white. The Earth chakra, for example, is blocked by fear. Aang having this open doesn't mean he has no fear or can never feel afraid. It means that Aang will not let his fear control him. The thought chakra is about not letting your attachments control you. That's just a distinction with all of the chakra in terms of the thing that blocks them. I suppose, unlocking that chakra doesn't mean you have for all time dealt with that issue. It can still remain an issue, but that you know how to kind of prioritize and not make that negative aspect kind of be the one thing that is controlling you, basically. So this is very much a character thing for Aang, because a lot of people, mainly Zutara fans, as a way to criticize Aang, obviously go heavy into the whole attachment issue with Aang and really try to turn him into some sort of a creep with his relationship with Katara, and it's very much a misunderstanding of the entire situation here. This one explains it really, really well here. So Aang even says it about himself, that his flaw is attachment. The difference between Aang and some other characters with this same flaw, like say Anakin Skywalker from Star Wars, is that Aang has been able to make it so that his flaw is not one that controls him. He can still care deeply about the people he loves, while also knowing that sometimes the world has to come first. And in The Promise, this is what he says: "Since Roku's my past life, in a way you're my family, Zuko, and no matter how hard I've tried, I've never been able to detach myself from those sort of bonds. It's a flaw, I know, but one I've decided to accept, for this life at least." And in the very same scene, you have Zuko also admitting that his flaw is decision-making, and it's one that he's going to have to, accept and deal with. But again, with Zuko, it's the same thing, where over the course of his journey, he has learned to make that flaw not something that rips him apart like it used to. He can make those decisions. It's always going to be tough for him, but it doesn't destroy him. And it's the same with Aang and attachment. So that's an important kind of thing to have just with regards to his character and what's happening here. So beyond that, we move into, I suppose, where the rest of the questions come up. All the other questions come up because of what Azula does to Aang. First of all, it is confirmed that Aang is killed here. Aang does die, at least for a handful of moments, and it's confirmed because of the line that Aang says in The Awakening at the start of Book 3. I went down. I didn't just get hurt, did I? It was worse than that. I was gone, but you brought me back. There's really no other way to interpret that than he was dead. Because, he was gone. That means he was dead. And we know they don't really like to use the dead word. So that's, I think, confirmation enough. I think the creators have also confirmed that he did actually die here as well. But it's important to have this fact in mind because it's where most of the questions come up from. That it wasn't just that he was unconscious or in a coma or anything like that. No, he was dead. So, first up, we will address why the Avatar cycle does not end. First, we need to explain why dying in the Avatar state ends the cycle in the first place. So Roku explains, if you are killed in the Avatar state, the reincarnation cycle will be broken, and the Avatar will cease to exist. We only learn the details to explain this in Korra because we see it happen, basically. Obviously, what happens with Korra and Raava in Book 2 is... it's a little bit of a different scenario than, I suppose, the most obvious one you'd expect of the Avatar dying in the Avatar state or anything like that, but, what we see happen there, helps to explain to us in a lot of detail what exactly happens. So, the reason the cycle ends is because in the Avatar state, Raava gets hit just like the human. And if Raava is destroyed, she will of course be reborn in Vaatu, but this also separates her from Wan's reincarnation cycle. The Avatar state is where the human and spirit are bonded most closely, so both suffer when hit or killed. Now, the important thing here, we're connecting Avatar and Korra here, is that anytime they refer to an avatar, the avatar spirit, your avatar spirit, we now know the name of that spirit. It's Raava. Raava is the avatar spirit. And the other thing is that the reincarnation cycle, we also know, is Wan's reincarnation cycle. He is the first avatar. Raava attaches herself to his reincarnation. That's what she says to him when Wan dies. She says, we will be together for all of your lifetimes and we'll never give up. So all of Wan's lifetimes confirming a reincarnation cycle, and that links to what Roku says, directly calling it a reincarnation cycle. So the destruction of Raava also results in the loss of the past avatars. It seems to be implied that Wan will continue to be reborn as a bender of all four elements, but Raava remains separate. We don't know for sure if Raava is what even allows Wan to be reborn, or if that is just how the cycle of life and death in the Avatar world works. Now, I was... initially, that was just, a fact, basically, I had in there that, Wan will be reborn and stuff like that. I added in the sort of caveat that, we don't know exactly for sure, because it's never been confirmed to us, if you die as a human, you are just reborn as another human. All we know is that there is a reincarnation cycle of Wan specifically, and it's easy to note because, obviously, the Avatar is the only one able to bend all four elements, and that is what makes Wan's reincarnation unique. Now, with spirits, we also have the idea that spirits can never truly be destroyed, apart from maybe dark spirit bending, and whenever they are destroyed, quote-unquote, they are usually reborn in some way. So Raava is reborn within Vaatu, and then other spirits usually just switch forms. We see this with, Lady Tianhai. When she takes on a mortal form, her human form dies, and she's reborn as a group of cranefish spirits. We also see General Old Iron die, and he goes from being his big kind of giant ogre-type form, human samurai ogre form, to being... kind of these lobster kind of type forms, and so on. So you get that idea that there is a sense of just the Avatar world tends to work on reincarnation, both spirits and humans, but we don't know for sure exactly how the whole life and death cycle works. But it's really a side point to what we're getting at here. Either way, Raava is separated from Korra, and while we see they can be fused again at harmonic convergence only happens every 10,000 years. So while Roku says, the Avatar cycle will end, and it seems to be end forever, there is the idea that the Avatar can always sort of be reformed again. If you find the reincarnation of Wan at whatever point in time, and you link them with Rava while a harmonic convergence is happening, then yes, you can always recreate the avatar again. But you know, the chances, the scope of time we're dealing with here, you know, the cycle truly ending in the way they talk about, not happening directly at harmonic convergence, yes, it effectively means that it will be over, but you know, there is a technical way to bring it back. It's an important thing to have. Next, so since we know that the cycle didn't end, when Azula shot Aang, what are the details of what did happen? The basic idea is that Aang was not fully in the Avatar state yet. He was shot before he got a chance to bend, and the idea was that after unlocking the last chakra, he's in control of the Avatar state. He is hit while still glowing. While we know that if you are in control of the Avatar state, it is used as more of a temporary boost by just turning on the glow for a moment. But because he's in the process of doing something that relates to the Avatar state, him getting hit here does have an effect on his connection to Rava. Now, that's kind of a technical explanation. Is the best way I could kind of really word it as such. But you know, you're talking about this kind of crazy situation that Aang is in at this point in time. He has just unlocked that final chakra, so he's allowing all this energy to flow through his body. There's cosmic energy beginning to come in because, of course, the seventh chakra relates to cosmic energy. There's the chi within his body, which is already sort of amplified because he's the Avatar. He's just about to go into the Avatar state, and what hits him is extremely powerful lightning, a super high-powered firebending technique. So the amount of energy kind of stuff that is just happening to Aang's body as he is killed here is kind of crazy. But the distinction that you have to make here is that he hadn't fully unlocked the Avatar state. He wasn't fully in the state yet, because of course all he was doing was glowing and kind of hovering. He wasn't really, you know, attacking yet or anything like that. If he had truly mastered the state and unlocked it completely, the glow would have went off and he would have had the sort of power level as if the glow was still on, as we've seen other avatars use before. So the thing that you have to take here is that the process was stopped just as it was about to finish. So, and we know that Rava was injured in this because of the webcomic Escape from the Spirit World, which is all about Aang reconnecting to his avatar spirit, Rava, by finding the previous 4 avatars in the spirit world. These screenshots will help to get the idea across. So at the very start of this, Aang actually meets with Yue, who explains to him what he has to do. Then he meets with the avatars. So we see here she explains, Aang, your avatar spirit has been injured. If you don't act fast, you will lose your connection to your past lives, and the avatar cycle will end. You must find your previous 4 past lives and reconnect with them. So that's what he does. He successfully finds and connects with Roku, Kyoshi, Kuruk, and Yang Chen, and learns about how no avatar is perfect and that they've all made mistakes. That's how he makes the connection, is by finding them and talking to them all about mistakes that they've made in their lives. That's not particularly important for the sake of this video, what they talk about, but just for Aang personally it helps because obviously he sees how he got into this situation as being his greatest failure. Other avatars have had bad stuff happen before as well. At the end, he is told the following by Avatar Yang Chen. Now that I've reconnected with all of you, does that mean the Avatar spirit is okay? They're talking about Rava here again. The Avatar spirit, this was before Rava was revealed. Yang Chen says, yes, but your physical body is still injured. You need time to heal. And unfortunately, it seems your ability to enter the Avatar state has been disrupted. So that's fairly self-explanatory. In short, we learn that Aang was killed, but revived shortly afterwards by Katara, and that Rava was injured but not destroyed. Spiritually, Aang reconnected to Rava, leaving the only remaining issue with him and the Avatar state, a physical one. This explains why the cycle didn't end. If Azula had waited a little bit longer, she may have ended the Avatar state, but she may have also have had to fight an Avatar in the Avatar state. Because that's, of course, basically what happened with Zahir and the Red Lotus. Their timing was kind of just that little bit off, and they suddenly had to deal with Korra in the Avatar state, and it was pretty much too much for them for the most part. So anyway, so we know why the cycle didn't end, but Aang did die. Why didn't the cycle move on to water? So we've addressed why the cycle doesn't end, but why doesn't the cycle then work as normal, given that, okay, Raava didn't die, so the cycle doesn't end, but Aang did, so why doesn't the cycle continue then? A simple answer could be that in the few moments that Aang was dead, no child was born in the water tribes. That's just a really kind of simple one of just like logistically, if Aang was only dead for say like a minute or two, if there was no child born in the northern water tribe, the southern water tribe, or maybe even the foggy swamp tribe, like what's he going to be reborn into? So if there was no child for Raava to be reborn into immediately, then she would go back into Aang when Katara revived him. Wan being unable to immediately reincarnate definitely plays a role in this explanation. Because obviously, ultimately that is just a guess, but it's a kind of logical guess to have, because that's how the Avatar works. Like we see in 306, Avatar and the Fire Lord, Roku's death and Aang's birth. They seem to imply it's like instantaneous. Like maybe there's a few minutes involved, but like the idea is that like the transfer, the rebirth of the Avatar does happen very, very quickly. It's not that like the Avatar spirit Raava is just gone for ages and then suddenly is reborn. It seems to be just as soon as possible Raava's reborn in someone. So, what I discussed with Escape from the Spirit World earlier also plays a role. Raava is injured. Even if there was someone to reborn in, her connection to Wan's reincarnation cycle was damaged. That's why Aang has to do the Escape from the Spirit World thing, because his connection to the Avatar spirit is damaged. So the cycle was so close to ending. So could the cycle even work properly, given the circumstances? We know that if not for Aang being revived and reconnecting with Raava, the cycle would have ended. So this is playing on the other side of things. So obviously Aang died, so that's that scenario done. But also there has to be a factor there of, was there a child to be reborn in? Then the mechanism, the spiritual aspect of it, Raava. How does Raava move on? And how can Raava move on if she is injured enough that like her connection to Aang is still there, but it's badly damaged? So, there's this sense of like that sort of, that damage, that injury is what interrupts the cycle continuing. So Aang is even able to be revived because no Water Tribe child was born in the minute or two he was dead, and Raava being injured and the connection to the Avatar being damaged stopped Raava from moving on from Aang. And then we go on. As just a side note here, as for the spirit water that even revives Aang in the first place, is there an explanation there? All we really know is that it seems to amplify healing, waterbending healing. The specific water Katara uses comes from the spirit oasis where Twi and Law were, so it's likely even more effective than normal spirit water that, say, like I think Kaya uses it to heal Mako, Bolin, and Korra in Book 2, just as a pool of spirit water in the spirit world, and Kaya heals them using that, and it heals them immediately. But this is special water because Twi and Law were swimming in that water. So, I say here in the second point, the fact that Twi was involved is interesting, in the fact that Twi gave Yue life when she was born with an illness, suggesting that Twi and Twi's energy as well has this ability to cure illness and injury. And then given that Twi allows waterbending to exist, because it's the moon spirit, and waterbending has a healing technique, it sort of makes sense that the water the Twi swam or lived in is like imbued with Twi's energy, and because that energy like brought like that some of the life force of Twi brought Yue back to life, basically, it would suggest that that same energy in water would amplify healing to the point where it could also bring someone back to life. It's an interesting way to connect together a lot of very kind of scattered pieces of information to actually almost fully explain spirit water and how it works, and especially this type of spirit water. The fact that Twi is involved, Twi has previous history of effectively almost bringing someone back from death. Obviously, we don't know the specifics about like what exactly Yue's kind of illness was, but the fact that it was just cured immediately is very interesting. And then here's just some screenshots showing, of course, Katara using the healing water on Aang. And then here is obviously what happens when Yue is a child. She is basically put into the very same spirit oasis where the water that heals Aang comes from, and almost immediately her hair goes from being its normal color to being white, the life force of Twi going inside of her. So that's very interesting. So okay, Aang does survive and is still the Avatar as we enter Book 3. Why can he not enter the Avatar state until the finale? As Yang Chen said in Escape from the Spirit World, his body is still physically damaged. The spirit water revives Aang and heals the lethal aspect of his injury, but we see that between Book 2 and 3, Katara is constantly healing Aang's body, and even when he wakes up, she continues to have healing sessions with him. The basic idea here is that Aang's chi network is damaged, and over time is being healed by Katara. Here is an example of when Aang wakes up, what the scar on his back looks like. This is where he was directly hit. He also has a scar on the soles, the heel of one of his feet as well, because that's where the lightning came out. But this is the core injury here, and you can see how big it is when he just wakes up. And then in the finale, when we see his back as well, you can see the scar is much, much smaller. Getting across the idea of how much healing that Katara has done to make that injury not as apparent anymore. So just in like a handful of weeks, months, the scar has basically gone down at least in about like a third of the size. And now, obviously, that's just showing the kind of physical, the outward appearance of the injury, but the idea also is that that did damage internally to Aang on his chi network, and that also was healed to a degree with the outside injury as well. So what is a chi network? Because this is probably one of the more technical things that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know about, because it's barely ever brought up. Like, it's kind of weird that, like, the Avatar universe, like, for the most part, like, never really attempts to go into explaining necessarily how bending works. I think Iroh has, like, the closest to it, that basically gives what I say here. So in Avatar, every person has a network of chi paths that flow throughout their body. For benders, they can manipulate this chi and extend this energy past their body to bend their element. And in Iroh's case, he explains that they can manipulate that energy past their body to create the fire. So you can see the picture there of this is Yagoda explaining basically healing using the chi path diagram here on this kind of mannequin. So you can see that the chi paths flow all throughout the body, and they go all the way up the arms. There's kind of areas where there's not as many of them, but there's also areas where there's a lot, especially around the head, and that sort of makes sense because like there's 2 chakra points in the head, and they also play a role in the chi network here as these obviously huge pools of energy within the body, and that's why the Avatar needs them open. So I explained that in this other paragraph here. It is in general how energy flows through the body. And for the Avatar in the Avatar state, it's important to have the 7 chakra points open and no blockages on the chi paths, so that the incredible amount of energy can flow easily throughout the body. So I explained in my previous video on the Book 2 finale the idea of energy limits on the human body, and how the Avatar is special, not just because they can bend all 4 elements, but because of how their body is able to even accomplish that feat. And it's because if there's one key trait to the Avatar that's different than anyone else, is that the Avatar's body, regardless of which Avatar it is capable of holding so much more energy than a standard human, even a standard human who's a bender. It seems to be implied that most humans only naturally within their body have the ability to hold like just a little bit over the power of one element in their body. And obviously the Avatar is way beyond that, with the ability to hold the power of 4 elements, plus also the power of a spirit within their body. And then in the Avatar state, they're channeling both Rava's power, the power of 4 elements, and cosmic energy through their body. That's why they need all the chakras open, all the chakra points open, to have the most amount of space basically available in their body to let the energy flow and not damage them like it used to for Juan when he was in training. So, that's what we're getting at here in terms of, like, ultimately Aang was trying to, in unlocking the Avatar state, basically master the complete flow of energy throughout his body. And when he was taken down by Azula, this process was stopped in this incredibly energetic way. So like I explained, he was just about to enter the Avatar state. So there's cosmic energy, all of the chi basically active in his body. He's potentially ready to bend all four elements, cosmic energy, all this sort of stuff. And then he's hit by lightning, which is already a super, like, energetic ability. This completely explains why this mess of energy basically in Aang's back as we kind of move forward. So for Aang, he has all 7 chakra points open, but damage was done to his chi network around the back where his scar is. Katara also explains, "I can feel a lot of energy twisted up around there. Let me just see if I can." And then as she pulls it out, this triggers a flashback for Aang where he remembers what happened to him. It is implied that if they continued and Aang allowed Katara to fully untwist all of this energy, that they could have solved his problems right then and there. But Katara doesn't want to hurt Aang, and to a degree, Aang doesn't want to relive what he considers to be his greatest failure. That's why they don't just immediately tackle this plot point immediately right then and there. Visually, here's what we can see. You can see here... there's kind of Katara pulling the water out of she's obviously healing him, so the water has energy within it, and she's kind of pulling it out to sort of try and untangle some of that energy. And as we move forward, you can see as it's pulled out of him, he has this kind of shocked reaction because he immediately remembers what just happened. We have the lights here, and notably, we flash back to the moment when he was hit by Azula's lightning. This is part of that scene in 301. We see this moment of him being hit with the glow, basically just about to unlock the mastery of the Avatar state. So, so what is wrong with Aang is that he has twisted up energy around the scar on his back. That is preventing the complete flow of energy throughout his body. The fact that his injury occurred right when he was about to master the Avatar state probably has an effect here also, in that his body was left in a state where it was just about to channel a huge amount of energy. A change was just about to happen so that he could use the Avatar state at will. If that energy were to untwist and flow properly, the process Aang was going through as he was shot would complete. Enter the pointy rock. So, we know that chi blocking is a physical way to block the flow of chi throughout the body. So the idea of physical blows having an impact on the flow of energy is something that can happen. So Aang's back slamming hard into a rock that is sticking out untwists the energy and completes the process he started all the way back in the Book 2 finale. At this stage, there is no personal or spiritual thing Aang needs to do to master the Avatar state. The only thing that was holding him back was the lingering effects of his injury, and even then, it was just the kind of internal energy on his chi path issue. Nothing inherently physical, as we can see by the fact that his scar is fairly small at the time that the final battle actually happens. So hitting that rock or something similar was the only way to get the Avatar state back. And then visually we can see, here's the rock, you see it slams directly into where his scar is. That untwists the energy, and what happens again? He slams into the rock, you can see here normal, and then the next shot, the exact next screen, is exactly what we just showed more or less with Aang in the healing session with Katara. This kind of light happens, he goes back to the scene, they show this exact shot again of Aang in the catacombs, basically in the Avatar state, and they continue, and that's the difference here, is that we continue and we see the cosmic kind of representation of Aang, because of course the last chakra deals with cosmic energy. This is the representation that they always use for it, is that they're out in the cosmos, this kind of light and dark version of yourself, and so on. So this is the only logical solution to have to this problem, is that why on two separate occasions, when someone has been, I suppose, messing around with the energy within his back, whether it be in a healing session or him slamming into a rock, why would the flashback that triggers immediately go all the way back to book 2 if they weren't telling us that it's completing that process, that that's all it is? It was just that Aang's body was left in this state where the process of him unlocking the avatar state was just left incomplete because of this blockage of energy around his back. All that needed to be done was for that to be solved. So we see that after this happens, he immediately enters into the defense mechanism avatar state, where he is not in control. This is because he was in immediate danger once the energy was able to flow. We know that this is how the defense mechanism avatar state works. This is why the glow stays on the entire time for most of this fight. But he is able to get out of the defense mechanism and stop himself from killing Ozai. And then after the fight is over, he activates the avatar state for the first time in control and makes the sea level rise to put out the fires across the kingdom, basically. So here we can see this is defense mechanism avatar state completely. We know this because, of course, when he speaks to Ozai just before he plans to kill him, it's not Aang speaking, it's very clearly like the combined, basically, will of the avatar, effectively. It's all of them together speaking. It's the avatar state voice, as we kind of tend to call it. But then after he gets out of it and defeats and energy bends Ozai, what he does to put out the fires is light comes on, but just for a moment, and immediately goes off. And with the lights off, that's when he does the really incredibly powerful waterbending move of making the sea level rise. That is an avatar state level waterbending move that he does, showing that he's in control. He just activated the in control version mastery of the avatar state, got the kind of temporary power boost, did what he needed to do, didn't overuse it, showing the complete process, basically. And then the final thing here is just this. You may ask, what about what Aang says in the Ember Island Players? And it's this quote that he says, "Overreacting, if I hadn't blocked my chakra, I'd probably be in the avatar state right now." Now, this is a weird one in that my take ultimately on this is that Aang doesn't really know exactly what the issue is with the avatar state. Like, does he know all the stuff I just explained? As far as he's concerned, like, he had this failure back in Ba Sing Se. A lot of that might come back to him remembering Guru Patik saying that the avatar state would be blocked if you left before unlocking it, and that sort of stuff. All he knows is this general idea that Patik said that if I leave this kind of undone, one of your chakras is going to be blocked. And as far as he's concerned, that's the problem. He knows there's maybe something up with his back, but doesn't know the exact specifics with that. As far as he's aware, he's still able to bend all the 4 elements, he just can't go into the avatar state. And he kind of just tends to put that blame on the issue with the chakra. And then because they don't, in terms of his character, ever really attempt to address the whole idea of him needing to reopen any of the chakras, especially the last one, it's clear that issue is dealt with. So what do I say here? All he knows is that he failed in Ba Sing Se and probably blames himself for not opening the final chakra with Patik. If he is correct, then it does kind of fit the idea that there is an energy blockage in his back, because a chakra being blocked is still a blockage on the chi path. But the thought chakra is located in the crown of the head, and nothing suggests he needs to open the 7th chakra again. He clearly doesn't. Unless you really interpret the scene of him hitting his back against the rock as being the true opening of it, even though I suppose the personal and philosophical opening of the chakra already happened all the way back in book 2 with him choosing to let Katara go. You could say that because of the way the process was stopped, the last chakra is in some form of a blocked state, but really I think he just assumes the issue is with the chakra. I don't think that line immediately just cancels out all of the explanation I've had before. It comes down to, based on what we see Aang learn about what's going on, he himself is fairly confused about the full extent of what happened to him. Obviously, the escape from the spirit world stuff, right at the end, they explain that he won't remember any of that stuff. So Aang himself doesn't actually remember like Yang Chen telling him that his body is still injured, and that's part of the reason he can't enter the Avatar state. But we have that to go on as the audience, because of course we see it as like an outside observer, whereas Aang was told that he would forget that because it was this special situation of reconnecting spiritually with the Avatar state, more so than anything else. So that's the explanation. This is one of the more complicated explanations in the show, because it is a weird situation of like, is there any other show where the final power-up that changes the course of the final battle for the hero is just this accidentally unlocked thing that happens kind of just suddenly? I can't really think of an example that fits it, but the explanation is so perfect in that it fits so well that it was clearly planned out this way, of like, there's this character-based reason for it, but fundamentally it comes down to, it is just a physical problem going into the finale, and the rock, or something similar to a rock, was really the only way for it to actually unlock. And in a way, you can kind of characterize, kind of like treat it as like, Aang stopped like Katara from doing the untwisting because he kind of didn't want to remember it all, but here is him, you know, in a way being forced to remember that failure, and in the process unlocks the power so that that failure can't actually happen. And then he kind of counters that by not needing to kill Ozai and using a different ability to end the fight and keep his like morals intact. So there's a lot of, you know, character stuff going on in the finale, but I think it all works together here. Very little of this is a stretch. It's just, it covers a lot of ground. It touches a little bit of everything, and that's why it's a fairly complicated explanation, along with the fact that it's basically like 220, 301, skip all the way to like the finale, and like it's not really a plot point for most of book 3, even though the Avatar state was a complete plot point for like most of book 2. But yeah, that's the explanation here. In the comments, let me know what other things in Avatar and Korra you would like to see me do a video explaining things in depth like this on. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.